Hi, friend. Today's episode is a masterclass on nitric oxide, known as the master switch for vitality and good health. Learn the signs of low nitric oxide and how to achieve optimal levels so that you can switch on this molecule for better sleep, better sex, better health, and even weight loss. If you listen regularly, you know that I reversed my heart disease, as in I had it and now I don't, by following a whole food plant based diet. If you're ready to add more plant based meals to your life, head over to my website, wellelephant.com, after the show to grab my free cookbook as my gift to you. And if you're really ready to reverse disease like I did, check out my online class, Ace Plant Based Eating, while you're there. I made this class with you in mind. Please subscribe to the podcast and to the Age Like a Badass Mother YouTube channel so that you never miss an episode. Thank you for being here. You know that you mean the world to me. Now, here we go. Hi, friend. I'm Lauren Bernick, and I'm flipping the script about growing older. From rebels and rule breakers to wellness warriors and wise women, my guests have been influencers since before that was even a thing, and we're not even close to finished. Welcome to Age Like a Badass Mother. Cathy is a board-certified holistic nutritionist with over 20 years of clinical experience. She specializes in digestive health, autoimmune conditions, neuroendocrine dysfunction, and metabolic imbalances, with a strong focus on clinical application of a whole food diet and nutraceuticals. Cathy is passionate about supporting healthcare professionals through education, collaboration, and holistic strategies. Please welcome Cathy Eason.
Hi,
Hi.
Lauren. Hi. Thank you so much for having me today. I'm really excited about this conversation we're going to have.
I'm excited to have you. I am a big dork for nitric oxide. I told you that before. I mean, I really dork out on this stuff, and I'm so passionate about it because, as I shared with you, and I think anybody who knows, who listens to this regularly, knows that I reversed my heart disease with a whole food plant based diet. And part of that was boosting my nitric oxide. Um, there's a very well known doctor in this whole food plant based area called Dr. Esselstyn, Caldwell Esselstyn, and he tells people to eat like a handful of greens that are steamed with a little balsamic on it 6 times a day to boost your nitric oxide levels. Have you ever heard of that?
I
Or
have heard of that, and I love that because as a nutritionist, I'm a holistic nutritionist myself. I work with people across a broad spectrum of health challenges and food preferences and sensitivities and things like that. But there's really not a person I've met who can't benefit from nitrate-rich vegetables. And I
yeah.
have heard that. And I want to add one piece to the doctor's piece of advice, which is those vegetables really need to be chewed really well in order for us to get the full nitrate benefit and all the other antioxidant vitamins and phytonutrients and polyphenols. We really need to start that process early. So when you were describing that, I was picturing people just picking up handfuls of spinach and chowing them down. And I want people to be a little more mindful about how they get these nitrate rich vegetables into their diet.
Right, because and I think the reason that he tells you to put a little balsamic on it is because, so it's, can you explain it? It's nitrate and then we convert it to nitrites. Is that correct?
Yeah, you've got it. Yeah, the nitrate is a molecule that has two atoms in the configuration NO3. And by adding the balsamic vinegar, he's suggesting that you add some acid to the greens. That helps with the digestion and the breakdown of nitrates away from proteins and foods that they're bound to. And even our spinach has proteins. There's a little protein content in it. And so it just makes it more bioavailable. And then in the body, we absorb those nitrates. We break them down again into a smaller molecule, nitrite. It's NO2. And then we break them down as needed into NO, or nitric oxide, which is a gas inside the body. And that gas is a powerful signaling molecule. And it's a really beautiful system we have to intake these dietary nitrates and then utilize what we need in the moment, excrete a lot of what we ingest because we simply can't use it all. And then we recycle a lot of it through the bloodstream and we use it again. So the process, the daily intake of dietary nitrates is what supports that really sustainable, recyclable pathway to making nitric oxide in the body.
Okay, wait. So you're saying we recycle it, but why do we have to eat it so often? I mean, does it just
It's
go
only got,
away?
yeah, these are
You're
small, mighty molecules with a short half-life. So the dietary
okay.
nitrates that we get in our spinach, in beetroot, in arugula, kale, celery, rhubarb, all sorts of foods, it has a half-life in the bloodstream of 8 hours. In that 8 hours, it's being reduced to nitrite and further reduced. These are chemical reactions down to nitric oxide, or it's being oxidized back to nitrate. So it's kind of on this seesaw balance of what we need in the moment. We tend to think of oxidation as always bad, but from a biochemical standpoint, we need oxidative reactions to function. We need the balance of both. And so that nitrate only has a half-life of about 8 hours. When it's reduced to nitrite, that half-life is about 45 minutes. And nitric oxide has a very short half-life of a few milliseconds to just a couple seconds. It's a very temporary molecule until it's chemically reacted upon and either oxidized back to nitrite, or it is turned into used. The ingredients are used in another molecule in the body. Our body's very efficient at this.
Whoa, 45. Did you say 45 seconds? That's
No,
crazy.
for nitrite, 45 minutes.
Oh,
And for
okay,
nitric
45.
and for nitric oxide, it is 2 to 3 milliseconds to maybe 1 to 2 seconds. That's the entire half-life of that gas. Think about, other um, gaseous molecules. They don't last very
Right.
long before they
Okay, you're
dissipate.
right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So our body just uses that automatically in that short time, or how does that
Yeah,
work?
I'd love to explain a little bit more about the pathways because we have two ways, we have two complementary ways of producing this really valuable miracle molecule, nitric oxide, in the body. One is through a very enzyme dependent pathway that's called the NOS or nitric oxide synthase pathway. It uses ingredients, amino acids in our body with the help of enzymes to produce nitric oxide and a couple other metabolites. And we can use it in the moment for everything for dilating blood vessels and having an appropriate immune response and regulating our hormones and all the other things I'm sure we'll get into. And
Yeah.
then the complementary pathway, which is what really intrigues me. And I'm also really, I geek out on this stuff every day because this is my role at Berkeley Life is to research all the science on nitric oxide. The other pathway is known as the entero in the body salivary pathway. So we eat our salad, we eat our leafy green salad, we chew it really well, we swallow nitrate, NO3. Our body, our digestive system, has acids in the stomach, the function of pancreatic enzymes that help us assimilate food, and we break down that nitrate to nitrite. It's one step closer to being that gaseous molecule that we need to signal all these things. So we make it, our digestive system makes it easier to assimilate. What we don't assimilate through the small intestine gets acted upon by microbes in the intestinal microbiome. We have specific microbes that live within us that break down nitrate into nitrite. There are beautiful little helpers in this. So in the large intestine, we recapture some of those nitrates as converted nitrite and we pull that into the bloodstream. Now that molecule has that 45-minute half-life that can be acted upon and can be, it's an electron exchange is what it is in biochemical terms, and it can be exchanged to make nitric oxide. Those nitrates, NO3, and nitrite, NO2, that circulate in the bloodstream, they what we don't utilize, about 60% is excreted via the kidneys and out through the urine. So we automatically get rid of about 60% of it through our daily urination. We use maybe 20% of it in making nitric oxide for all the various signaling properties it has. And then what doesn't get utilized gets recycled and stored in the salivary glands. There are specific cells within the salivary glands, and there's a specific transport protein that grabs onto those nitrates, pulls them into your salivary gland, and then all day long as we salivate, right now we're not eating any spinach, we're just salivating, and nitrates are now bathing the population of oral microbes. These are, beneficial bacteria that live in the oral cavity, and they have their own enzymes, just like in the large intestine, to break down nitrate to nitrite. And we can pull some of that nitrite into the bloodstream through our mouth, and then the rest of it gets swallowed, and the whole process starts again. It is one of the most fascinating physiological recycling mechanisms I've ever studied. And it's complex, but also really simple. It's the body's innate intelligence to say you're going to need this nitrate to make nitric oxide, to signal better blood flow, to signal how your heart rate stays stable, to signal the immune system and your digestive system and all the other things that it does for us. And so it's our body has a perfect complementary system to the other system I mentioned first, which is really enzyme dependent. And as research has, expanded, we've learned that many people have compromises or what we call gene variations to making those enzymes work functionally. And then as we age, we also start to experience more oxidative stress in the endothelial tissue, which is where those enzymes function. And so we get a kind of a dual decline because we have the aging process that simply reduces function, and we have oxidative stress inside our blood vessels that prevents the enzymes that are there from working well. So by
Yeah.
eating our dietary nitrates, we are complementing that. And yes, so every day on a daily basis, we need to be intaking nitrate rich
Is
foods.
that why I've heard, and I think I heard this from Dr. Esselstyn too, that you're not supposed to use mouthwash or toothpaste with fluoride because it's stored in your salivary glands? I didn't even know that was stored in your salivary glands. That's crazy.
Yeah, it's one of those things that when I first studied biochemistry a very long time ago, I learned about, but I didn't really pay attention to until I started um, working in nutrition, for the last 20 years, working with people who may or may not have vegetables in their diet, who may or may not
Right.
have the wrong kind of nitrates in their diet, processed cured meats like hot dogs and poor quality um, cured meats, things like that. Um, and I'm trying to come back to your original question.
But is that right about not having the mouthwash and the
Yes,
fluoride?
thank you, thank you. Yeah, what we know now, I work with a group called the American Academy of Oral and Systemic Health. These are healthcare providers across dentistry, dentists, hygienists, myofunctional therapists, air passage specialists, and they will all agree that the scientific literature shows that the use of what are known as chlorhexidine mouthwashes, this is,
Mhm.
I don't want to mention brand names, but
Right.
that minty fresh feeling that we've been
Hmm.
trained to achieve is damaging the quality, the balance, the diversity of the oral microbiome that we very specifically need to break down nitrates into nitrite. And the same, we're finding fluoride itself is a very antimicrobial substance in concentration in the body. So, in the effort of keeping the mouth, quote, clean, we are actually disrupting the very thing that helps us keep nitric oxide balance. And so a lot of
Hmm.
the more holistic providers in the dentistry world are understanding that oral hygiene is best when it's really just the mechanical action of brushing our teeth appropriately and flossing and using water picks. And it's less about the toothpaste and the mouthwash that we've all been trained to use.
Yeah. Okay, that's good. Okay, and I feel like we just jumped in, and I want to go back to a couple things. Um, so I did. You mentioned Berkeley Life, and I want to give full disclosure that I did find you through Berkeley Life. If anybody's watching on YouTube, I'm holding up this kit. So, like I said, I always dork out on nitric oxide. You have these test strips that come with your nitric oxide supplement called Nitric Oxide Foundation. And the test strip you just stick on your tongue, you put your saliva on, and then it has this like handy dandy little thing in the test kit. You could see, are you very low on nitric oxide, low, threshold, target, or high? And when I started, I was at threshold, and now I'm at target pretty quickly. Um, so I like your supplements, and actually I'm going to put it in the show notes. They'll have a link, and you were kind enough to offer 15% off to anybody who's listening if they want to try it. 15% off with the code badass. I'll put that in the show notes. But aside from taking supplements, which is a great way to boost. You can also get it through diet, which we talked about. But I think we kind of skipped over like, why is nitric oxide?
We
We
did.
just
We got
jumped in.
excited.
Why? Yeah, I got excited. Sorry, guys. Why is nitric oxide really important, especially for women or really for anybody over 40? Like, what does it do?
Absolutely.
Why do we need it?
Yeah, so let's give a little history first. Nitric oxide was discovered over 50 years ago, and then in the late 1990s, a group of pharmacologists won the Nobel Prize in Medicine and Physiology for the discovery of nitric oxide in the body as an important signaling molecule to widening or vasodilating your blood vessels. That helps control blood pressure, that helps control heart rate, and it helps prevent nitric oxide was shown to signal antiplatelet aggregation, meaning you're less susceptible to getting atherosclerosis and plaques and blood clots and things like that. So it was a huge discovery, and then science since the late 1990s has discovered all these other important signaling mechanisms that nitric oxide does beyond just improving blood flow, improving blood pressure, improving heart rate.
What do
And
you mean by
it's
signaling? Can I stop you and
yeah,
ask you that? What I
yeah.
don't know what you
In
mean by that.
biochemical terms, everything in the body. I used to say that I hated the study of biochemistry, but I've been studying it for over 20 years, and I actually really love it. It's just can be complicated. Everything in the body runs on biochemical interactions that is usually an exchange of electrons. We are sort of electrically charged in the body, and chemicals do that for us. So, as a signaling molecule, nitric oxide either donates or accepts electrons to cause a reaction to occur. So, in the instance of blood vessel dilation or widening for better blood flow, nitric oxide signals the release of a compound called cyclic GMP. And the concentration of cyclic GMP is a second signaler to the smooth muscle cells around your blood vessels to relax, which allows the opening and the widening of the blood vessels. There's less constriction, there's less restriction. Your blood flows straight and smooth, and your blood pressure remains normal as a result. So,
So signaling is what it sounds like it's telling them
yeah,
relax. Okay,
yes, exactly. Relax. And then in terms of,
relax.
yeah, in both male and female aging health, we're starting to hear a lot of people over 40 talk about their sexual dysfunction. And that
Right.
blood flow isn't just about keeping your blood pressure down, it's about bringing oxygen and nutrition to every tissue of the body so that it stays healthy and functional. And in terms of sexual health, it's about making sure there's appropriate tissue perfusion of blood and oxygen and nutrients and hormones that need to flow and everything that the blood carries for us. It's very important to maintain that blood flow as we age so that all of our functions, our immune, digestive, metabolic, weight management, sexual function, all of that stays well supplied with nutrition carried through the blood.
Yeah. And again, like I said, I've gotten a lot of my education on this from Dr. Esselstyn, and
It's
he
great.
calls erectile dysfunction the canary in the coal mine because if your penis isn't working, then that means I guess maybe your blood vessels aren't dilating either. And so how does that show up in a woman? Harder to orgasm or what?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, it is.
because
It's
I
more,
find
it's,
that, and I feel like my levels are good, but I even find like it takes longer for me.
Yeah,
Is that
it's everything from it's been studied to show that low nitric oxide levels and reduced blood flow to reproductive organs lead to less arousal, less desire, and a lot of that is the interaction of nitric oxide signaling the hormones and signaling the glands that release the hormones. But it's also about less lubrication as women age. It is about taking longer to achieve orgasm and not as enhanced of an orgasm. So, one of the studies that we have funded and provided product to is we're really proud of because it's a pilot study and we got some pretty good results. We did a female sexual function pilot study, a small population of women, but in the peri and postmenopausal age. And we found that 83% reported enhanced orgasm and 78% reported improved lubrication and less pain with sex. And then we saw some other interesting, not statistically significant, but directional trends in things related to your nervous system. So improvements in sleep quality and sleep duration. That's a big one for aging. And also like just wakefulness in the morning and sort of getting rid of that brain fog. And so what women are going to
Yeah.
experience usually starts with a lack of desire, a lack of arousal for their partner. Um, when there's disinterest, then nothing else really is signaled very well to make the rest of the sexual activity very fun. So we are doing a larger clinical trial, and these are all double-blind, placebo-controlled trials. We are
Okay. The
contributing
gold
to the
standard.
research, but we're
Yeah.
trying to do gold standard research. I get to work with some amazing researchers all over the world who are doing really interesting work in nitric oxide and the aging population, and especially in postmenopausal women, because that's a big target audience, because we know that as women age and hormone levels decline, we see a dramatic reduction in nitric oxide production. That leads to less blood flow, less oxygenation, less nutrient delivery, and we start to get those restrictions and cardiovascular disease risk factors showing up. And we really want to be part of the education that says we don't have to just become one of the 1 in 3 women who are going to die from heart disease. We want to be preventive about it. So we're doing this research. We love the idea that women are having better orgasms and that they are, having more desire. And we think that's a healthy quality of life in aging. And so we're really proud to be doing this kind of research and looking forward to seeing what the next study results bring us.
You're doing God's work, bringing orgasms to women.
That's
Um,
right. And talking
it's
about
the it's the
it.
Lord's work. Seriously, but is that tell me, so is that a sign then? I mean, and it's really interesting because you always just think it's hormones, like, oh, the reasons whatever these are happening are hormones.
Yeah.
But so tell me some of the symptoms that your nitric oxide levels are low.
Yeah. So, in both men and women, but women tend to describe things a little bit differently. The first thing people usually feel is just a general lack of energy. They don't have the energy they had to chase the kids, to keep up with the busy schedule, the work life balance. They're always tired. They wake up tired. They're reaching for coffee in the afternoon because they're feeling that slump. They don't have the energy for their, favorite activities. They're not walking the dog as much. They're coming home and sitting on the couch and kind of couch potatoing rather than being active in the world and in their community. Women will say things like brain fog. Men
Hmm.
don't tend to admit to a lack of cognitive function the same
I
way, but
wonder if they
women,
have it though. Do
I'm
you
sure I
think?
I know they do. I've worked with
You know.
hundreds of men over the years, and I can see the sharpness, the mental acuity, the kind of mental focus kind of slipping away. And, we tend to think, oh, it's just aging. No, it's low nitric oxide. You're not getting appropriate blood flow and
To your
oxygen and
brain?
nutrition to your brain. Yeah,
That's
it's cerebral
crazy.
blood flow. So we hear brain fog. We
Uh-huh.
hear, I went to the doctor and my cholesterol has jumped dramatically and my blood pressure's creeping up and the physician wants to put me on medications, but I really don't want to add anything to that routine. We hear cold hands and feet a lot from women. That's the lack of circulation, and usually a lot of oxidative stress in the blood vessels that might be also related to things like early insulin resistance, development of metabolic syndrome, being labeled as pre-diabetic. We see digestive issues, especially
Well, why
sluggish
is
digestion.
can I stop you?
Yeah.
What's the correlation between blood sugar and nitric oxide?
Yeah, this is an important one. So nitric oxide in the gastrointestinal system, it signals gastric motility. And what that means, it's going to help make the smooth muscle cells of your stomach do what I call the churn and burn a little bit better. And then we have in the
What
small
is that?
intestine.
Digestion? What are
Yeah,
you?
yeah, your
Okay.
stomach actually has, a chemical acids and proteins that help break down proteins and carbs and fats. At the same time, nitric oxide is signaling the smooth muscle relaxation so that the stomach can actually do its mechanical action on food. If you've ever felt your stomach
Oh.
twist or turn or clench, it's really happening. It's a very muscular organ. And then helping gastric motility in the small intestine, nitric oxide activates something called the migratory complex, which is helping move food along through the small intestine for better assimilation. When you get better assimilation of nutrients, you tend to be better nourished, and we're less likely to start reaching for the sugars and the things that start to offset our metabolism. We know that nitric oxide plays a role in regulating the release of our hormones for hunger and satiety. We know that nitric oxide contributes to the movement of a little transport protein that helps bring glucose, blood sugar, into the cell for energy production more efficiently. Nitric oxide at the same time plays a role in insulin sensitivity and how well your insulin helps with that transport of glucose to the cell and uptake into the cell. So it's very much implicated in keeping blood sugar stable. And part of the research we've done has shown, again, not enough statistically significant results, but directional trends bringing down hemoglobin A1C levels, which is your 3-month measure of blood glucose. And that's a very important marker that physicians use to determine, a diabetic condition or not. Bringing down low density lipoprotein cholesterol, which is the more inflammatory type of response, bringing down other inflammatory markers like C reactive protein. That's another big inflammation marker that patients would see on a yearly blood test. So people start to come back to their providers and say, gosh, my blood pressure's creeping up. I just have no energy. I've put, 20 pounds on around my midsection, and I just have no desire for sex. I'm cold all the time. And the other thing I've noticed clinically, because I do still work clinically, is that people get what I call air hunger. And they tend to, because their tissues aren't getting well oxygenated, and oxygen's used in making cellular energy, they tend to yawn a lot. They tend to sigh a lot. And I'm not talking about you just walked up the flight of stairs and you're out of breath. I mean, it becomes habitual, but it's also the body's way of saying, I simply need more oxygen because I don't have enough nitric oxide, which, by the way, contains an oxygen molecule. So I see
Oh my
people do this
gosh.
kind of, and if you look around your friend group some night and you're having a dinner party and
I
just see
will.
who's yawning, and they'll say, oh, I just, I had an early morning. I was so tired. It's like, or you simply are
Or
lacking the nutrients that you need to make
you need
energy.
some nitric oxide. That
Yeah,
nitric oxide is a hardworking lady. She's doing everything. I mean,
she
is
is.
that that's why they call it like the master switch, I guess? Is that
The master
because it
switch, the miracle molecule, it's now being called
yeah.
the longevity molecule. And I love that phrase, but I think the word longevity is getting overused. And one of the
Mhm.
things I'm passionate about in the aging population, I am 58 years old. I am,
Yeah.
postmenopausal, 58. I have certainly watched my body change and develop, but I plan to have a healthy lifespan. I have
Yes.
witnessed too many people in my family have an unhealthy lifespan. So maybe they've lived longer than their quality of life suggested they
Yes.
should. I want to, that old saying, I want to go out kicking and screaming with
Yes, me
a bar of
too. We're
chocolate
like
and
the
a,
same age.
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
about to
And I
turn
want, yeah,
57.
I,
Same.
and you're
Yeah.
looking good, girl. And
And you too,
I
girl.
think we can
But
go
I'm not
out with
postmenopausal. But
oh, okay,
no,
okay.
I'm still going. I'm going through it. I just started going through it. It's crazy. But yeah, I want to have a long that's exactly why I got interested in this. I am not interested in living for a long time if it's not going to be good.
Yeah.
I want to
That's why,
just keel over at the end.
yeah, I prefer to call it the vibrancy molecule, the vitality molecule.
Mhm.
But it is really the master switch because of how many things in the body it signals. There is not a body system that it does not play a role in.
I didn't realize that. I really just thought it had to do with your endothelium, with the lining of your arteries. That's really in the context that I knew it. But okay, so let's see. well, tell me again some of the you named some of the foods. Like, what? How do we get this from foods?
Yeah,
What
from
foods should we be
foods,
eating?
there are nitrates in most every leafy green vegetable, and I mean the dark leafy greens. So
Right,
spinach,
arugula,
kale, arugula, Swiss chard, and they have different concentrations. And as a holistic nutritionist, I'm always trying to encourage my patients to choose organic when possible because we know,
yes,
we're avoiding pesticides and insecticides, and we're trying to get a more nutrient dense food. But we also know that there are plenty of studies on vegetable content around the country showing that not every nitrate rich food is going to have the same concentration of nitrates. And a lot of it depends on the region of the country you live in. There's cool studies
soil
about
probably.
soil properties. There's cool studies about time of day harvesting and whether or not these spring spinach were
Oh
harvested
my
under a full
gosh,
moon, and all that. So
what?
really interesting stuff showing different levels of nitrate. So we want to do our best to choose fresh, whole nitrate foods.
What else though? Beets. Beets have a
Beets,
lot.
beetroot, and the beet
Beet,
greens. Yeah, and beets,
pomegranates.
pomegranates.
Is it?
Pomegranates are more about the antioxidant content. So
Oh,
every in
okay. I thought that.
nature, the nitrates are protected by vitamin C and other antioxidant nutrients in the foods that the nitrates are packaged with. Because without nitric oxide itself, the little NO molecule, it can be both oxidative and reductive, meaning that exchange of electrons I talked about before can make it swing. And sometimes, as I mentioned, we need nitric oxide to be oxidative, meaning you've ingested a virus and your immune system wants to attack it and neutralize it. It's going to signal nitric oxide. Nitric oxide itself is antipathogenic, but it also starts to signal a cascade of immune responses, chemicals and white blood cells, to help neutralize that virus so it doesn't grow and get out of control and you stay healthy. And this is happening every day without us knowing it, that we are constantly fighting off, or we are just managing, I should say. Maybe fighting is the wrong word, but we're managing these pathogens that come our way. And so we use it that way. And
With vitamin C.
with
So
vitamin
are you
C,
saying
and the
like,
and the vitamin C and the antioxidants will prevent it from turning into. This is where nitrates got a bad rap. People were eating. I'm just going to really simplify it. People were eating too many pepperonis and hot dogs of really poor quality.
yeah,
They had synthetically produced nitrates as preservatives in these foods. You ingest those without the benefit of antioxidants in your diet. Those antioxidants are there to protect the body from further oxidizing those nitrates and having them become inflammatory. In the plant world, those foods come with the antioxidants that we need. So when you're eating the whole plant food form, or you're taking a supplement that has nitrates and antioxidant and cofactors for assimilation, you're going to prevent the body from making those nitrates more dangerous. How else can we build nitric oxide? We do it through movement. So daily movement is very
wait,
important.
can I just stop you
Yeah,
though? Uh,
yeah.
So, okay, I just want to make sure I'm understanding this. So, is it beneficial then to eat like your green leafy vegetables and beets and whatever with maybe like a salad dressing that has citric, like lemon juice
Oh,
or
lemon juice,
something
lime
like that?
juice, a blood orange
Things that
vinaigrette.
have,
Yeah.
okay.
You got
And I
now the
guess
foodie
that's
in me is coming out going, how do I love my beets?
so I guess that's why, okay, that's probably also the thing that Dr. Esselstyn was talking about is eating the
Uh-huh.
greens with the balsamic. So it's the same,
Yeah.
maybe is that the same concept or is that something
It,
different?
it- I think
I
the
guess that's,
balsamic is more about the acid and
oh, okay.
helping provide the good acidity for the stomach to start breaking down those nitrates to nitrite.
Okay.
There are other
Okay. And
polyphenolic compounds in balsamic vinegar, but yes, you would want, and spices are a great source of antioxidant too. We often don't think about culinary herbs and spices as having antioxidants. So
oh,
when
yeah.
you're, using more, and especially fresh herbs, using more of those fresh herbs will provide more of that antioxidant compound that prevents that damaging. We call it amination. You might have heard of nitrosamines. That's a
I have
nitric oxide
not.
that has been attached to an amine in the body, and they can become inflammatory in excess, again, the body is all about balance. One nitrosamine molecule might have a role. 50,000 nitrosamine molecules might have an inflammatory response. So we
What?
can't call these things necessarily bad. They are just um, inflammatory when they're out of balance.
So how do you get nitrosamine? Wait, I don't
It's
understand that.
really from how
Do we need to worry about it or?
no, you don't need to worry. You know how you prevent it. You chew your foods really
Okay.
well. So and you work on optimizing your digestion. So
Okay.
for people with back to that enterosalivary pathway of the nitrites and the nitrates, when we swallow them, we need good proper acidity in our stomach, and a lot of people lack that. A lot of people are using acid blockers or things like Pepsid and things like that.
Oh,
We want
yeah.
appropriate digestive function in that early part of the digestive system in the stomach. So a lot of people will use raw apple cider vinegar diluted in water as a digestive aid. That's a great way to ensure that the nitrates are going to start their breakdown early in the process, not remain attached to incompletely digested proteins that then might become inflammatory if they're not neutralized by an antioxidant like vitamin C or some of the other antioxidant vitamins and nutrients in our foods.
Yeah. I mean, you just brought up a good point because I know so many people who take antacids, Prilosec,
Hmm.
and all these things. And that, to me, it's saying there's something is wrong in your body and don't just pop a pill. And you're saying that, this is triggering or keeping you from absorbing, right?
Yes, and how we know this is twofold. I mean, as a clinician, I look at signs and symptoms of low stomach acid. So I look for gas and bloating and belching and bad breath and undigested food in the stool reported, and just a litany of things from I kind of work on digestion from the brain down, and I look for a litany of symptoms there. But clinically, this is where the test strips for nitric oxide also come in. How we utilize the test strips initially is that we have somebody take a baseline test. It's just a snapshot in time, but it is clinically correlated via research studies to show that the little pink color that shows up on the test strip has a quantifiable correlation to lab values tested in blood and saliva. So somebody gets up, they take their first baseline test in the morning, and they're low, and they take a dose of dietary nitrate supplementation. And 90 minutes later, you set a timer, and 90 minutes later, you take the test again, and you should see some improvement on the test strip. If you don't have any improvement, that's suggesting that your body is not appropriately breaking down, assimilating, and recycling those nitrates back to the salivary gland. So now healthcare providers in functional medicine and naturopathic medicine in the holistic realm will start to evaluate where's the breakdown in the pathway. So one place to look is, do I have appropriate stomach acid? Do I have appropriate stomach digestion to start breaking down those nitrates? Remembering that we need nitric oxide to improve the motility of our intestinal system, helping us pull those nitrates in. We can't do a blood draw and test our nitrates every day. It doesn't, not feasible from a consumer standpoint, but we can look for the signs and symptoms where the breakdown might occur. So it could be low or poor quality digestion in the stomach. It could be gut dysbiosis, meaning large intestine, or microbiome imbalances. It could be related to poor quality and diversity and capacity of the oral microbiome to be part of that recycling process. So as a clinician, I look at all those things. If you're not changing the color on that test strip with one dose, we need to figure out right away where's the breakdown in the process so that I can help you better assimilate this very important foundational nutrient that are the nitrates.
So if you're not seeing any difference on that test strip, then somebody needs to see a doctor. Is that kind of what you're
Well, not
saying?
necessarily. Or
Just
you start to knowing what you know. from this talk today, you start to investigate, how is my digestion? And it could be as simple as using, steaming those greens with the acid of the balsamic vinegar. That will help support the acidity of the stomach. You could use the remedy of raw apple cider vinegar diluted in water, about 1 ounce, and about four of vinegar and about 4 ounces of room temperature water, and drink that before your
How is
meal.
that like a what is that? Like a tablespoon of
Yeah, it's
apple
about a
cider
tablespoon,
vinegar?
maybe, or maybe
And
two.
then
Yeah, I usually start
okay.
people small with a tablespoon and work up to
And then
maybe two.
4
About 4 ounces
tablespoons
of
of
room
water.
temperature water. Yeah. You can
Okay.
also get some, not everybody loves vinegar as much as I do. I can just kind of chug it straight from the bottle, but not everybody does that. So there are brands out there that have sort of honey sweetened varieties and stuff. But the same thing could be done with a digestive supplement as well too. But the other thing that Berkeley Life offers is, we know that when the recycling system breaks down, the oral and that test strip isn't changing. That means that there's not enough of those nitrate reducing bacterial species in the oral cavity to take the nitrates in your saliva and break them down to nitrite. So we offer a prebiotic nitrate-rich chewing gum that is sort of a functional gum or a therapeutic gum, and it contains the same dietary nitrates in our primary capsule formula, but it also contains specific ingredients in the gum base that help repopulate the beneficial bacteria in the oral cavity, including those nitrate reducing ones, and dampen down the more pathogenic ones.
Oh, that's
So,
interesting.
is bad breath from your low stomach acid, or is it from your unbalanced microbiome? It's probably both. So the what the gum does is, we recommend that people chew the gum, one piece of gum for 5 minutes twice a day. And what I see clinically is, in about 1 to 2 weeks of twice a day gum chewing, that test strip starts to change more. We start to see the benefit, because now we know that there's better balance in the oral microbiome. They're doing a better job for us breaking down our nitrates to nitrite. That's going to contribute to increased nitric oxide production, better blood flow, better weight management, better hormone balance, better sexual function, better immune function, and vitality through the lifespan.
Oh man. Okay. So I didn't realize. So bad breath is if somebody has like chronic, what is it called, halitosis.
Uh-huh.
So then they have maybe some low stomach acid or something wrong with their saliva biome,
Yeah,
their
those are
oral
both
biome.
those are potential root causes. Yes,
Okay.
when people report that, I mean, there are other um, heavy metal imbalances can create halitosis, but those are kind of the two biggies that you look for: is something in the
Okay.
early digestive function and something in the health of the oral cavity, including the oral microbiome.
Wow. Okay. It sounds like I just really, like I said, I'm a little bit. I thought I knew a lot about nitric oxide. Well, not a lot, but like a lot for a layperson. Um, but I guess like I said, I really just thought it had to do with your endothelial. I didn't realize it affected your weight, your hormones, your sleep, I mean, I knew sexual function. I did know that because of vasodilation. Um, but I mean, what else? It's just like it seems like it touches everything. That's great. Even like your breathing, like you were saying, you're sighing and your oxygen. I mean, that's incredible. I so I got this test. I did the Cleveland Heart Lab when I was trying to, you're shaking your head, you know what the Cleveland Heart Lab
I
panel is.
do. Uh-huh.
So when I was trying to figure out if I had reversed my heart disease, that was one of the ways. They gave me the Cleveland Heart Lab panel, and it tests ADMA, which I guess is, I don't know exactly what it is, but it says my ADMA is in the desirable range, suggesting optimal levels of nitric oxide and low risk of endothelial function. So what is ADMA, and should
I
we
do.
test for that
Uh,
or?
you know, yes and no. You had such a beautiful and dramatic change in your health, and so along your pathway, it was probably very important to get those kinds of specific measures. That's not a common test. I'm sure that Cleveland also test also includes like a test of your calcium score in your blood vessels, and that's going to as calcium accumulates in the blood vessels, that's going to create increased risk of blood clotting and potential for stroke and all that. ADMA is another secondary messenger molecule. So when I said that nitric oxide stimulates the release or the accumulation of a molecule called cyclic GMP, ADMA is another measurable molecule in the bloodstream. Nitric
Okay.
oxide also signals that molecule, which has its own host of additional physiological signaling mechanisms, and they all work
Okay.
in concert with each other. It's like a beautiful orchestra, and nitric oxide is sort of leading the way as the conductor and saying,
Yeah.
you trombone, turn it down, and you
Right.
flute, turn it up, and so I like to use analogies like that to sort of simplify it because it is a very complex metabolic reaction. I think what
Okay.
the average patient will see are those markers of inflammation. So if there's somebody like you and they're really dedicated to reversing a chronic disease, which is entirely possible as you've proven to us so
Yes.
beautifully, um, the first things to start looking at are the most common ones. So looking at the things that cause oxidative stress in the endothelial tissue inside your blood vessels, which then starts to lead to inflammation. And what does the body do when there's inflammation? It creates a response to try to manage it. And that tends to make things almost worse before they get better, especially if the lifestyle hasn't changed at all. So we would look for things like high glucose in the blood. We want to keep our glucose levels normal. And then on a typical blood chemistry test from an average doctor visit, you're going to get that hemoglobin A1C, which is a 3-month measure of glucose. And that is something that, as that elevates, that's a big red flag for inflammation. So are rises. It is natural for us to see our cholesterol, our total cholesterol rise as we age. We need it. We have some degradation going on, age related. We need to do a little patch and repair in our vessels. And we need some of that cholesterol to rise. But when we see big jumps in especially the low density lipoprotein, then we start to be concerned that there's an inflammatory response that the body's trying to target. And that's why we're seeing a jump in cholesterol. So we look for rising glucose, rising cholesterol. We look for elevations in homocysteine and
Hmm.
C-reactive protein. Those are also two inflammatory blood markers. I
Right.
always have my patients look at their vitamin D3 levels because vitamin D3 plays a role. It's very hormone-like, and it plays a role in so many mechanisms in the body, but it's also directly related to nitric oxide function. They work in tandem in some hormone and immune channels. And so I think that's the place to start. That, and then nitric oxide has been studied really well in physical performance. And so if you are the weekend warrior and you want to improve your 5K time, or you want to, have more stamina for pickleball, we work with a lot of pickleball and paddle is big in Austin where you live right now.
Yep.
Cyclists and runners and things like that. There's a balance of those sort of extreme exercise levels tend to increase oxidative stress. At the same time, nitric oxide is trying to restore the health of the endothelial tissue that's making nitric oxide to give you energy to do the events. So it's all again about a balance. And so we in individuals like that, using the test strips it's a really simple, non-invasive 10-second salivary test you can do at home to see if your levels of nitrite testing through your saliva are remaining fairly consistent. You're going to have peaks and valleys and fluctuations depending on the activity of your life. But nitric oxide has been studied so well for improving endurance, improving stamina, improving power output. So then if you're that person, you might be testing your VO2 max, and you might be, having your sort of sports medicine related doctor test your grip strength and other markers of power output that can be done really easily in the clinic. There's a lot of PTs and occupational therapists doing that kind of testing too. So, I mean, it depends on how far you want to geek out
Yeah.
about it. But I think your
Yeah.
basic inflammatory markers are the starting point. And then if people
Okay.
have this real risk of cardiovascular disease, going and doing something more extensive like the Cleveland test you did is really a
Okay.
great idea.
So just so I understand, so let's say your blood pressure jumps up, your cholesterol is higher, your A1C is creeping up, your um what else? What else would be poor sleep, poor lubrication, poor hormone like orgasming or
Yeah.
erectile function.
You catch a
Uh,
cold and you don't get over it very quickly. You don't have a
okay.
robust enough immune response to handle.
Wound
Wound
wound healing
healing is
too.
another one
Yeah.
too. Yeah,
So
we know
these are
that
all
dry
indicators.
skin and
Uh-huh.
the appearance of fine lines and wrinkles that are kind of getting more, we're all going to get some. I've
We're
earned
going to
mine
get
really
some.
well. I'm happy for my smile lines, but yeah, but skin is a big tell. So
Okay.
everything from, skin rashes, eczema, autoimmune conditions like psoriasis, but really just skin that is dry all the time and no amount of moisturizer or hydration is touching it. That's another
Okay.
sign. Hair loss. Hair loss is another one that we know
Oh,
that if
really?
you're not getting good blood flow, oxygen, and nutrients to the scalp, you're not going to, fuel those hair follicles to
I
keep
hear
your hair
that all the
healthy.
time.
There's some really great
So,
research, especially in male pattern baldness, about
really?
using nitrates, and you can use a nitric oxide based serum on skin for healing wounds, but also for I haven't seen clinically, I haven't seen anybody reverse their male pattern baldness. I don't want to give false hope
Yeah.
out there, but we do know, like for people recovering from skin cancers and things like that, it's a really great way to both internally increase your nitrates and perhaps topically use a serum to
Where do you get a
restore balance.
topical? Do you have to get
Um,
that like compounded
I would
or
talk to your prescribing physician about where to find the
okay.
best quality, because there's some really poor quality aftermarket, or should I say over the counter market ones that I don't really want to recommend.
Right.
But I would say talk to your primary care physician or your functional medicine provider to find those, because they'll find you the right quality. Berkeley Life no longer has a serum. If you are using a serum, you need to make sure it's got that antioxidant rich base in it. So it should come with some kind of vitamin C serum as well too. And then in your neck of the woods, I do want to give a shout out to a friend of mine in your neck of the woods who has a great line of skincare, and she does a vitamin C serum that I have seen coupled with dietary nitrate intake. I've seen it really improve people's skin health and especially some wound healing. And the name of the company is Life Root Botanicals, and they are all
Life root?
Life Root
Okay.
Botanicals. They're
Life
down your
root
way.
botanicals.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you for all that good information. So, just some fun, quick questions I like to do at the end. Do you, well, I think I know what you're going to say for your best piece of advice for aging well, but what is your best piece of advice for aging well? Maybe it's
You
not.
I have several, but I think it's to embrace each day with vitality. And for me, nature is a big part of vitality. So even if I can't get, quote, out in nature every single day, I walk outside in the morning, I put bare feet in grass, and I put my face to the sun. And I do
Oh,
some breath work. Targeted breath work is a way to build nitric oxide in the paranasal cavity too. And as somebody who's been through, I recovered from mold toxicity. I had a sinus surgery about 7 years ago. And it's very important for me to keep those nasal passages really healthy. And it's also just great for my psyche and my perspective to get out and if there's no sun, just put your face up there and pretend it's there.
pretend there's
It's
sun.
there. The UV rays are
Love
still coming
it.
through.
You know, you said something that just triggered my memory about nasal breathing. Do you like that mouth tape trend that people are using for
Yeah, I mean,
sleeping?
for a lot of, I tried it for myself, but just like I did when I was a kid and I had headgear with my braces, I ripped that
Right.
tape off in the middle of the night and
Yeah,
I throw
that
it across
seems
the
like
room.
what I would do.
So what I encourage people to do is practice. There's many YouTube videos to practice breath work. I like the really simple 4-7-8 breath. It's got a Taoist tradition, but it's been replicated by many people. And it's very targeting to the nervous system, and especially your vagus nerve, which also controls so much of our organ function. And it has a relationship of boosting nitric oxide when needed to help us activate digestion and help us activate hormone release and all that. And that 4-7-8 breath is really simple. You breathe through both nostrils to a count of 4, a deep inhale. You hold it for a count of 7, and then you exhale for a count of 8. And it's important to do pursed lips.
Oh, you
As if you're,
release through your lips?
you release
You
through your lips, because
Okay, so you
what
breathe in through your
you
nose,
breathe in through
hold
your
it
nostrils.
for 4,
Uh-huh.
hold it for 7, and then you
Uh-huh.
do pursed lips and breathe it out for a
Uh-huh.
count of 8?
Through both the nostrils and the pursed lips. So you
Oh,
just kind of open your
oh,
mouth, and you're going to get a little bit of both.
okay.
And that what that pursed lips does is, and you repeat that cycle 3 times is the recommendation. That centers your autonomic nervous system so that your sympathetic and parasympathetic relax and go buttons are more aligned and more balanced. It also increases nitric oxide in the parasinus cavities, but the pursing of the lips also helps us activate all the sphincter muscles in the body. If you are a woman and you put on your mascara and you open your eyes real wide and you open your mouth at the same time, you're
Yes.
kind of doing the same thing. So we purse the lips, and what that does is it sort of tones the sphincter muscles of the body. That's everything from a little muscle around your bile duct that helps you with good bile flow out of your liver. It's the sphincters of your intestines. It's the sphincters of our face musculature. So really important to it's a very holistic way to sort of activate the whole body.
I love that. I just learned something so new. I learned so many new things today, but that was a and then thank you for that. And then lastly, what's your favorite concert you've ever been to?
Oh, well, I told you before the call that I just went to an amazing, epic bluegrass festival in Targhee, Wyoming. That was lovely. But I will say my favorite concert ever was Nathaniel Rateliff and the Night Sweats on an outdoor
I love
stage
him.
in Portland, Oregon. And part of what made it so special was not only how great the band was, but how many communities of friends from different areas of my life that were there in one evening, and they all came together, and it was just so heartful that it's probably the best show I've ever seen.
I've seen him. I saw him at Radio City Music Hall in New York, and I'm telling you, that place was going wild. That
Yeah.
is Oh my gosh, that's a good one. You know what? I haven't thought of that concert in a couple of years, but boy, that was a good concert.
Yeah, we'll have
Good
to play
one,
their
Kathy.
thank you. We'll have to play their stuff today and get your
That's
dance
right.
on and have some vitality.
Oh my God, that is a good one. Well, thank you for all of your help. And like I said in the show notes, I'll put the link for Berkeley Life with the 15% off code with Badass. So thank you for everything.
Thank you. It's
Take
my pleasure
care.
to be here. Thanks. Have a great
Bye
day.
bye. Thanks for listening, friend. From my heart to yours, be well until we meet again.